Hello, my friends. Today's update starts with very interesting news from a foreign publication. The first delivery of F-16 fighter jets from NATO allies has arrived in Ukraine in a long-awaited move that may boost the war-torn nation's ability to repel Russian attacks. Honestly, I wish foreign publications would spread this information less, but since it has been announced, I can also talk about it. Now we wait for the first results from the aviation. Will they strike Russian bases in the area? It's still a question, but the possibility remains. Also today there is hope that even a small number of F-16s can reduce the use of Russian aviation and consequently their strikes with caps, which would halt Russian successes along the front line. Although the White House hasn't confirmed the transfer of aircraft.
On the second question, you'd have to talk to the Ukrainians. I'm certainly not going to talk about weapons capabilities. I will only add that, to remind, as we have said at the NATO summit, that the process of providing F-16s to Ukraine continues to move forward. We've said that they will be operational by the end of the summer. We have no reason to doubt that.
Also today, in another interview, Zelenskiy stated that Ukraine shouldn't liberate territories by military means. Although earlier we heard the very different statements that we must defeat Russia solely through military means. Overall, as we can see, things are changing and there are already talks about referendums. A referendum on Ukraine's territory should be decided by Ukrainian people, Zelensky said in an interview with Le Monde. A referendum, the Ukrainian people must want it. Frankly speaking, this is not the best option because we are dealing with Putin and it would be a victory for him if he took some of our territories, the president said. According to him, any issue regarding Ukraine's territorial integrity cannot be decided by one president without the Ukrainian people. It contradicts our constitution. Zelensky also noted that Ukraine shouldn't liberate all its territories by force and weapons because it costs us a lot of time and human lives. We can return our territories diplomatically, the president concluded. Friends, what do you think about this? Please don't stay indifferent and share your thoughts in the comments. Meanwhile, the Russians continue to advance gradually, so let's move on to the situation along the front line, starting with the Kharkiv direction. Here, the Russians have temporarily stopped their activity on Gleboka and Liptsi, but continue shelling and preparing for new offensive actions. After their recent advances, the situation has worsened, and now they can break through directly to the outskirts of Liptsi. In Vovchansk, the Russians are also trying to advance meter by meter despite huge losses. Today, street battles and shelling continue. The Russians are also attempting to capture the village of Tikha. For now, we are waiting to see how the new assaults will end. In the Kupiansk direction, the Russians continue heavy shelling and are trying to advance further near Pishane after their recent successful push. However, there have been no new changes along the front line over the past day. In the Svatove direction, the Russians continue to assault Telmakhivka. Battles are also ongoing for the village of Makivka to the south. However, they haven't achieved any new successes and the front line remains unchanged. In the Kreminna direction, the Russians continue their assaults on Nevsky and fighting is ongoing in the forest near Kreminna. The Russians also keep shelling Liman and other frontline settlements, but this hasn't led to any advancements, thus the situation remains the same. In the Siversk direction, the activity remains high. The Russians continue their attempts to break through in Verkhnyokamensky, Vyemka and Pereizhne. They are also striking Siversk with cap bombs, but the front line remains unchanged. The Russians are trying to dismantle the Ukrainian fortified areas, yet no new advances have been made. In the Chasiv Yar direction, the Russians are gradually advancing within the town. According to reports from Ukrainian armed forces, the Russians are having success moving street by street. This indicates that in the near future, battles will be taking place almost in the center of Chasiv Yar, as the fighting has already reached the outskirts of the Zhovtnevo microdistrict. Overall, the news from this direction is not very positive. In the Toretsk direction, the Russians continue their gradual advance, and many might ask why the front line remains unchanged. The reason is that these Russian successes are quite limited, roughly up to 100 meters. The Ukrainian armed forces can counterattack the next day or use FPV drones to destroy the Russians attempting to secure positions, causing the front line to revert. Hence, these minor advances don't change the front line only when it's confirmed that they have made significant progress and truly secured positions will the front line shift. For now, the battles continue. In the Pokrovsk direction, the situation is catastrophic. There are about 50 assaults daily, and the Russians are shelling the entire territory towards Pokrovsk intensely. Almost all settlements are under attack. Today, assaults on Zelenskiy, Sergiyevka, Vesele, and Ivanivka continue. Battles are also ongoing along the highway, with assaults on Vozdvizhenka, Timofeevka, and attempts to advance in the Novo-Alexandrivka area. However, the Ukrainian forces are destroying them as much as possible, as seen there have been no new changes on the front line for the second day. In the Kurakhove direction, the Russians continue their assaults on Krasnohorivka. Once again, I must mention Slatkov's promise to capture the city by July 1st, yet here we are on August 1st, and the outskirts are still under the Ukrainian forces' control. After several months of shelling, the Russians began an intensified assault on Krasnohorivka on February 24th, 2024. Prior to this, there were attacks, but they were limited. For nearly 5 months since the end of February, the Russians have been actively assaulting this settlement, but have yet to fully capture it. Battles for Poroskoviivka and the village of Kostiantynivka also continue. Despite previous successes in improving their positions, the Russians haven't achieved any new breakthroughs, and the Ukrainian forces are managing to repel all attacks. In the Vuhledar direction, the Russians continue to push towards Velika Novosilka. However, the Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling these attacks, even though the Russians have closed in onto the settlement. Elsewhere, along the front line, there is currently no significant activity, and only shelling is taking place. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, the Russians continue trying to reclaim the territory lost during the Ukrainian forces' counteroffensive. They are making attempts near Robotyne, towards Smolata-Kmachka and Novoandriivka, but there have been no new changes along the front line in the past day. In the Kherson direction, shelling of the right bank continues. However, there are no reports of new clashes, and the front line remains unchanged. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.